What's up, guys? Anthony Alcoholic. Very happy to be speaking on here tonight. I actually just got done with with an in-person speaking commitment that was 7:30 here, which I didn't know I double booked until Patrick was like, "Oh, you want to do the 11th?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." So you know, where was I? Where I was? So I grew up. Really in a really Italian Catholic family home, fantastic parents, who always cared about me without a doubt. But I felt very sheltered and very overprotected. An example is like I wasn't able to watch PG-13 movies until I was like 15 or 16. Just stupid stuff like that. But I always knew my parents always had good intentions. Um, so, grew up, I never really dealt with mental health. I'm gonna be honest. At first, I kind of thought it was kind of like a joke because, I thought it was kind of people, just trying to get attention and everything. And after being experiencing it, I was like, okay, this shit is real. Um, so, graduated, lived in a little town called Long Branch, New Jersey. Graduated from Long Branch High School in 2019. Had a whole scholarship to Penn State. But for the longest time, from when I was I can even remember from being in middle school, for some weird reason in the back of my head, I always thought I'm not going to end up where my other classmates are going to end up. I had no idea what it was going to be. I had no idea what was going to happen. But for some reason, I always thought I was not going to end up where they were going to end up. So, like I said, graduated in 2019 for an engineering scholarship at Penn State. And, at this point, I had maybe drank twice. I was never drunk, but I drank twice and, smoked weed once, and it never fazed me at all. But one thing that really was always hard for me, ever since I was a little kid, was just trying to fit in. I was bullied a lot in in middle school, and when I got to high school, I really excelled because I wasn't myself. I tried to be the popular kid. I tried to be someone who I wasn't. And I thought I was doing a great job. I had all the hot girls in the back of my car, being the designated driver and everything like that. And it was working out great, to my knowledge, at least. So 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave for Penn State, I was a caddy. For anyone who doesn't know what a caddy is, it's the guy who carries the golf bag for the golfer. So I did it as a summertime job. And 2 weeks, exactly to the day, 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave for Penn State, I got whacked in the back of the head with a golf ball at 100. I don't even think the doc said 100 miles an hour. And the doctor said if it was 2 inches lower, I would have been dead on impact. So, I really thought to myself, okay, someone was definitely watching over me that day. And that day was probably the first time I ever felt depressed. I was supposed to have my last concert with my band that we had in high school. And it didn't work out, because I just got knocked by a golf ball. I leave for Penn State and all hell broke loose. And like I said before, I was always very sheltered and overprotected. So I never really got to experience, high school parties or, I would go out with friends, but it would mostly come over to do study groups or something like that. So I go to Penn State and, like I said, I want to fit in. So everyone's drinking and everyone's smoking and I'm feeling absolutely miserable. I talked to one of my buddies, who was my next door roommate. And, I told him how I was feeling and he was like, yeah, you ought to try this thing called weed. I'm like, I tried it before. It worked. It was nice, but, and so I tried it and it made me feel so much better. After 4 hours, it was done and the high was done. And I was like, all right, what are you doing now? He's like, smoke more. I'm like, okay. So that was my introduction into drugs and alcohol. I eventually had to stop weed because, I had an edible that was laced with fentanyl. And and I ended up throwing my guts up, being very sick from it. And at this point I was drinking, but definitely not an alcoholic tendency drinking. And but the difference for me was, I never grew up with no one in my family, even aunts, uncles, cousins, whatever, has ever had an addiction problem. So I was always like, why am I feeling this way? Like, it always made me question, like, I'm a 19-year-old, I'm at college, no one else is drinking, getting suicidal thoughts. Why am I? So I leave for I leave for winter break, and you know go meet a psychiatrist, and he puts me on Zoloft. And as soon as I get back from winter break, I remember very vividly. I was taking the train back to college. This the first weekend in January in 2020, and I remember so vividly that I saw, like 5 minutes before the train was coming, I saw myself in my head in third person, me jumping in front of the train with such visual, like detailed and graphic imaging, which scared the living shit out of me. So I really I called my mom, and I explained to her what happened, and I was done taking the Zoloft. And as soon as I stopped weed, my drinking skyrocketed. So at this point, I was kind of lying to myself. I was telling my family and my doctors, oh yeah, I feel great, and inside, I was able to put on the outside, how a normal college kid was supposed to feel, but inside I was a dark human being. Like, it was, what was going on in my head was, I thought I was the only one going through this. No one is ever gonna be able to relate with me. That's what I thought. So I stay at Penn State for a little bit longer, and then my story, I mean, yeah, drinking was a problem, but for me, I honestly believe that mental health for me was more of a problem. I was so messed up in the head that I decided to fake a whole story at college, saying that I walked into my buddy's apartment, seeing him face down on the ground, all overdosed with cocaine on the floor, just so someone could say I'm sorry to me, because that's how much sympathy I needed. Because I was like, why is this happening to me? This is not my fault. This is other people's fault. So I need to hear sorry from them, and obviously, my mom found out the story, found out it wasn't real. And February 27th of 2020, still having no idea I was drinking, she kind of made like an intervention on me, picking me up from Penn State without even me knowing. So the plan was to go to Penn State, and then stay at home for about 2 or 3 weeks and go back. And within a month later, I was in rehab. Within that month, I got kicked out of my parents' house. I drank about 40 bottles of a mix of like rum, whatever you can think of. And I was still questioning, like, why is this happening to me? And I still wasn't accepting the fact, So I get out of rehab, and I think I'm fine. I thought, okay, let's go back to, doing what college kids do, and that's drink and do school, without having any suicidal thoughts. So I moved into a sober house, and I put down the drink, and I thought everything was going to be fine, but nothing changed whatsoever. My parents still hated me. I was still a lying, cheating, stealing son of a bitch. And the only thing that I changed was putting down the drink, and that didn't do anything. So eventually I tried to get into this relationship, and which didn't work out. I ended up relapsing on 2 bottles of mouthwash, because I was so messed up in my head that anything that said alcohol in it, in my head, was like, all right, this is going to make me feel better. So obviously I didn't get drunk. I got very sick. And I go back into detox, and that was the moment when I thought to myself, all right, there's something going on here. I don't know what's going on, but obviously I can't drink like a normal human being. So I get out of detox, moved into another sober house, and decide to, my buddy's like, yo, we should go to this local AA meeting. I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to go to AA, man. Like, that's for old people." So I go to AA, and the very first meeting I go to, and this is my very first God moment. I raise my hand on Anthony Alcoholic, 30 something days, blah, blah, blah. I share in the middle of the meeting. And the guy who's chairing the meeting is a great family friend of ours. And I didn't realize it, but I used to go over his father's house all the time because his father had this huge train set I was crazy about. And the fact that somehow I went to that meeting at that specific day on that specific time, at that specific place, I didn't know at the time, but I look back at it now. I'm like, there's no way that couldn't have been anything else besides God. So I thought to myself, all right, there might be something here. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a try and see what happens. So, whenever I try something, I always put all my heart into it. So that's what I did with this, and I just made a beeline to stay right behind this gentleman. He was like 48 and had like 21 or 22 years. And, what I learned from him is, and a lot of people hear me say this all the time, is get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that honestly, for me, has saved my life on a daily basis. For me, whenever I was comfortable, I would always, that was a bad thing because, I was so used to being comfortable, just laying on a couch, with a bottle in my hand, like a complete bum, just not really wanting to do anything with my life. And that was my comfort zone. Getting out of my comfort zone was stuff like doing this. I hate public speaking, but I know for a fact after I'm done with this, I'm going to feel so much better than what I did before. So, the main thing that I'm trying to say, and by the way, welcome. There's a lot of people counting days tonight. Probably the most I've seen on this meeting. So welcome to all of you guys and congrats to the celebrants. But, getting out of your own skin was always a hard thing for me. Considering that I was always trying to fit in and I didn't like what was inside of me. So I really, I think honestly, just doing everything, from the coffee commitment to being the booker to a meeting, whatever, the simple things that I do just to keep myself accountable and to keep myself, my buddy says, if you have one hand in God and one hand in AA, you don't have a hand to pick up a drink, so that's what I carry with me every day. And then I got a sponsor who is absolutely awesome. He's actually speaking on here on Thursday. I just think, getting a sponsor for me was was a great decision, especially getting a sponsor that I can relate with. And not only just like, through, addiction wise or anything like that, but just in general, like he's a drummer, I'm a drummer, he loves dogs, I love dogs, like he looks like Hulk Hogan, I look nothing like Hulk Hogan. But it's just getting, like I can't even say this enough. Just getting out of my own skin, was incredibly difficult. However, I thank myself every day for doing stuff like this because this helps me stay sober on a daily basis. Just doing whatever I can to help the next suffering alcoholic or addict. Picking up the phone, and that phone is 100-pound weight to me sometimes, but it works. And I know from personal experience, whenever I go through, any certain like depression or whatever, the last thing on my mind is anything that could help myself, like God or picking up the phone. But, I push through and I push through and I push, and I always know without a doubt, there's always some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. So, I just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And, it eventually all comes to, all comes full circle when I eventually pick up that phone and call however many people I need. And then, 15 minutes later, I feel amazing, because I got it out of my head, because that's what, people in Alcoholics Anonymous have to do. So I know, my drinking career, I know, isn't that long. But for me, and like I say, I'm pretty good at, like, freaking tattooed on my arm because I say it all the time. You know, getting comfortable being uncomfortable is the number one thing that I have done every single day throughout my 13 months of being sober. Which honestly, honest to God, has saved my life on more than one occasion. Um, but this group is absolutely amazing. I come here almost every night, because it's always it's like a nightly ritual. I fall asleep on this group because I don't even have time. If I fall asleep and I wake up the next day, and I realize, oh shit, I didn't even have time to go downstairs and grab a drink. You know, so that's how I work my program personally. And it's worked out for me so far. It worked out today. Tomorrow we're going to find out. But all I got is today. And I learned to really understand that. But Patrick, thank you so much for letting me share my experience, strength, and hope. And I hope I brought you guys a typical AA meeting. Thanks for letting me share.